So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Mr. Stuart Rose on. Now, myself and Stuart have been working together within the 1% for the last few months. I wanted to bring Stuart on to talk about his experience working with me so far. And because it's the usual story, right? I think Stuart recognised that things weren't particularly working for him in terms of personal health, well-being, and feeling a bit overwhelmed with work and the pressures of work, life, the universe. Recognised he wanted to make a change, and in a very short space of time, we've made some, in my opinion, pretty good progress. But I think it's always a powerful story to listen to because I think anyone out listening there will resonate with what's going on and what's happened. And also, just to reinforce, it isn't weird, wonderful, or scary to make some changes if you're not feeling your best, right? And so it's a powerful discussion if ever there was one. Before we jump off, Stuart, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, a bit about you?
Yeah, hiya. It's good to be here. It's good to be here on the other side of the headphones. As I said to you just there, I'm an avid listener to the podcast. It's the rest is history, and your podcast every week without exception.
I'm in with a pretty good lineup there, so thank you very much. I don't think I've got quite the same viewership or listenership.
Yeah, I wouldn't have agreed to do it if we had the same reach as the rest is history. But no, I am an avid listener, so it's nice to take my place among the lads that have contributed to this. And we'll come on to the benefits of it all. So so I'm Stuart Rose. I am, and I'm going to get the order right here. I am 39.9 years old. I'm a dad to Theo, who's just over 2, husband to Rachel, and I'm an accountant. I am an audit partner in a professional services firm. I've worked here for pretty much my whole life. Well, my whole kind of adult working life, certainly. I've worked here for 18 years, yeah. So that's me, and I got the order right, I think.
Hang on, I would say, yeah, definitely.
I got the order right, which
We were
maybe
just
we'll
saying
come on
offline.
to.
Sometimes when I do this, I think guys, I'll say introduce yourself, and they just think about the work bit and kind of forget about the dad husband part. But like, you've definitely got the right order there, Stuart. So box tick there.
Yeah, and when we come on to perspective and priorities, but I'm pretty sure when I joined my first blueprint call, I would have done it in the other way. In fact, I almost said it there. I almost said I'm a 39.9-year-old accountant. I almost did it, and I had to correct myself and put it in the right order.
It's nice to recognise that and see the change, right? Because that's important. And that was, and we'll get onto this, one of the reasons why we ended up working together in the first place. So I guess that's a nice segue to move on to kind of where this all started. So I think a good a place to start as any would be to rewind a few months into the past. And it may be further for you, but you reached out. You'd seen some of my bits on LinkedIn. I think perhaps you'd seen the usual story, a post to someone else or a colleague about working with me, and went, right, I want to have a chat. So we had a conversation and decided to kick things off. What was going on with you back then that made you go, right, you know what, I want to have a chat with somebody like me?
Yeah. So I guess rewind it to, Theo's just over 2, okay? So, massive change in anyone's life. I'm sure people listening will get that.
Totally.
And so all of a sudden trying to be, a good dad, it's a steep learning curve, good husband, be supportive to my wife, who's obviously on the same learning curve, also got a professional job, probably more of a learning curve for the mother than the father, actually, but let's not get quite into that. All of a sudden, actually, where maybe you had fewer priorities before, and actually maybe it was all about you before, now actually your time's split 3 ways and you've got pretty real demands on your time. And you don't always you can put yourself last in that priority order, and I'm sure a lot of people will relate to the fact that some things can slip. It can be easy to deprioritize a kind of any investment in yourself. So a couple of years in, exercise had slipped. In fact, exercise had slipped off almost completely, to be honest. Fitness had definitely slipped. Weight had definitely slipped as well, but it's important for me to think about the listener here who maybe hasn't been through your program, and I am framing this experience having come through it and knowing what I know now. So I didn't come to you saying I want to lose weight, okay? But it had slipped in that time. So, and I think it wasn't, again, I'm articulating it having come through not come through, but having worked with you for a period of time. I'm articulating it in that way. But there was just something missing. Those things add up to there just being something missing. And, I did probably frame it in a work sense, in that, like, if I'm not operating at the best level, it does start to just trip into work. And it's not that you lose your ability to do the technical side of your job, like that's there all the time. It's the, I don't want to call it the softer aspects, but it's the relationships, the interactions you're having. There's just a bit more strain on some of those things. It's like you find yourself in this position, you're like, do you have all the tools to deal with that? No, probably not, to be honest. So that happened over, say, because we've been working together for about 14
Yeah.
weeks now, I think. Because
Yeah.
well, in fact, I went back and checked preparing for this. So I followed you on socials for a while. I hope you won't mind me saying this, Luke. Originally, I was like, "What's this guy on about?" Like, is it a bit? Because it's quite heart in your sleeve stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the family stuff is probably the stuff that really got my attention, and the showing up and being present for your family piece, rather than framing it through, right, I want to be the best kind of professional, and if that all gets fixed, family will get better as well. But then, whenever I thought about it, I kept watching and I kept following, okay? And eventually, so it was Friday, I went back and checked, Friday 9th of January this year, first week back at work, okay? I had a really restful holiday period. I forgot to mention in my intro that all going well, there'll be another member of our family joining us in 8 weeks. So
Very
my wife is
exciting.
pregnant. Yes, it is. That'll be here before we know it, and we'll maybe come on to that. So we had a really restful holiday. No work for 2 weeks, lots of family time. It wasn't really like a party Christmas, because my wife was obviously not drinking. So I had a really, really restful holiday. First week back at work, probably wasn't even a full week back at work. And I just felt stress levels isn't quite the right word, but I was just straight back up to 100. It was Friday night. I got home. I was straight back up to 100. And, it wasn't necessarily work driven. It wasn't like that was a big deadline day, because
Yeah.
it's the first week back. Like, I was
Nothing's
like, it's
going
the
on.
first week back,
Yeah.
Stuart. If you're feeling like this, it's intrinsic. You made it. You made this happen in your head. I'm straight back to some of my old habits of working all night to get I don't know what done. So I got home Friday night, and I was just right back up to 100. And I think that's when I can't remember what the words are in your socials, but it was something about, if you're like, I'm not getting home and I'm angry with my family, but I wasn't present. And then
Yeah.
actually present, that was probably the word that I was like, actually. And then I must have saw some of your content that night, and I was just like, I'm just going to message this guy. And yeah, and there you go.
Yeah, well, I think that it's a great summary of where you're at, and I'm sure anyone listening can relate. And there's a few bits to pick out there. I think I would totally agree. When you have your first child, before you have your first kid, you've got this vague idea of what it's going to be like, but you're absolutely fucking clueless, to be frank, right? And I was completely oblivious. And there's that cliche thing that people tell you, you know what it's like until it happens. You really don't. You literally have no idea. And then it hits you, you're like, what the fuck is this? Because it's the first time in your life, if you're a good person and you actually care, which most of the people I speak to are, like, you are no longer the center of your own universe. You have got something that you are completely and utterly responsible for that is out of your control and does what the fuck it wants. When
Yeah,
talking about a baby. And so that is like, and so it sets the cat amongst the pigeons. And I think we don't have a roadmap that we're given to be able to deal with that and cope with that, right? There's books, whatever else, but you just get thrown into it, and that's that. And I think historically we've built up mechanisms to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and with whatever demands you've had. And that changes and evolves over time, right? And I think as we get older, it's not the age thing, it's the more responsibilities at work, new baby, wife support, the list goes on. And you can get to a place where it's like, well, I know I need to look after this, but I don't really know exactly how best to deal with this. And I'm doing what I know and what's worked before. And there's a point in which sometimes that gets to a point where the way you're operating isn't fit for purpose, or it's suboptimal and it's not delivering what you want anymore. And be that at work, grind really hard and work super, super late to get everything done and go all in. Well, you're successful and you get your job done and you are Stuart, irrespective, but it's not really delivering the full level of output that you would like. It's almost like having to work your absolute knackers off to hit baseline.
yeah.
then
Yeah.
that then has a compounding effect with how you show up at home, because if you're having to overexert to hit baseline at work, well then, like, it's a bit like going down the motorway in second gear. It's like, wee, you're getting the job done, but there's less else left. So you might be less present, when you get home with your partner and your kids. And so it creates this sort of milieu of just not really feeling your best, recognizing you want to address it. And then something like an example where you go away, you have a nice Christmas, you decompress, and then you just, boom, right back to where you were. It's like, what has happened? There's nothing. And it's that penny drops, because materially, okay, I'm back to work, but there isn't some crazy, horrible deadline. But I'm gone back to exactly where I was just before needing a break. And it's like something has to give here, and recognizing, well,
Yeah.
perhaps there's a better way to operate within that, both professionally but and personally as well, right?
And I realized that I couldn't, it's not like I could blame the hangover, because actually, we had a really restful time of it,
Yeah.
And this is what you say is kind of what I mean when I say, do you have the tools? Because, I'm necessarily oversimplifying things, but if you're in your 20s and you're in a professional services environment like this, to be clear, it's an accountancy firm, but professional services is the modern word for it. You can be bloody minded and all in, and you could run in
Totally.
second gear for quite a long time. And indeed, if you're in that stage in your career and you're listening, I think you should. I think you should go
I
all
agree.
in.
I was going to say, I think that's a good
it's a
thing. You
it's
need to do that, right?
it's a solid investment, and it will pay off in the future. And like it has for me. But that what got you here isn't going to get you the next stage in your life. And so just running so you've now got you're now splitting your time 3 ways. Well, I mean, obviously I had a wife before, so maybe I should have been splitting it 2 ways, but you've got more demands on your time, and just running the machine hotter isn't going to work. You're just not, yeah, the inevitable march of time. You get older, and also the nature of your job may have changed, and the nature of what you need to do at home, and the reserves that you need to be present at home are different, and you can't just run it till 5 o'clock on a Friday and then collapse, because actually you're still needed at 5 o'clock on a Friday, and probably first thing on a Saturday as well.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was the sort of place that you were in. It's interesting. There's another gent that I worked with in the process. He won't mind me saying, because he's been on the podcast and shared this. A guy called Dougie, also a fellow Scot. Not that that matters, and he had a similar story. He'd been watching my content, and he saw a post, and it was me. I think it was a video of me walking with Joy, or it was photos on the train. I was like, I'm excited about my weekend. I can't wait. I'm not going to get smashed tonight, and I'm really looking forward to it. And he was like, drinking the wine. Fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are? Like, who's this prick? And then he was like, I could not get that out of my head, because he was like knackered.
Yeah, I remember that post.
Yeah. And he was like, I said, I can't get that out of my head. And he was like, gone from like a fuck you, who's this guy for years, to actually need to speak to him. And I'm not saying that like in a sort of snide way. I'm just thinking, it's like, sometimes I think if something hits, you go, right, yeah, you sort of see past the veneer of what's going on. And so I'm not judging anyone for doing what they do, but I think it's, and also I'm not some perfect saint, and I never want my content to sound preachy, because I hate that kind of stuff. But it's like saying there is a different version here that you can have. And I think there's one here that you're sat in that's, I think sometimes the place where people can end up, it can be quite insidious, because it's not an absolute car crash. You're not getting divorced.
Yeah.
You're not like, having super issues at work, and like, so nothing's absolutely on fire, but there's just this general knackeredness, malaise, and not just not feeling your best. And I think that chronically does not feel good. And so something like that post or whatever can just point at that, and you go, oh shit, actually maybe I do need to do something different, right?
And that's something, like you say, I mean, I'm not saying that I was burnt out, although maybe I was, to be fair. But I'm not using that term. I'm not saying I was depressed, and externally it could look like, actually, well, what's he got to complain about? But again, this comes back to my point. I'm articulating it, knowing what I know now. There's a nagging self-doubt there that you're not doing the right by yourself. So it wasn't like I was like totally overweight, although there was some shirts that were less comfortable. And now I might express weight and how I feel about my body as part of success. But it wasn't like I was totally overweight, but I would now say that I just knew I wasn't doing right by myself. That didn't quite come out right, but that's that nagging self-doubt that was there. That was like, yeah, I need to do something to try and fix this.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not completely overweight, but I don't feel my best. I'm not like coming home screaming and shouting at my kids, but I'm not present and my head's stuck in work. I'm not
Yeah,
about to get a divorce, but I'm not showing up as the best husband I want to be. So it's all these like, you know, not the extreme thing, but equally like, especially for high performers like yourself and other people that I work with who are driven and focused and have got success in career, like this isn't there's an incongruence, right? There's a
yeah,
disconnect between like what I know I can achieve, whatever, and the whole thing is outwardly looking in. It's like it looks pretty good, pull your socks up. It's like I feel shit. Why? And I think it's the cognitively being aware of. Hold up, there's a gap here. I'm not being my best here. I know I can be better, but I'm not doing it. And I think that being in that place is where that comes from. And it's not outwardly looking in. It's all great on paper, but I feel shit. But knowing that you can address it, but not knowing what to do, and then just sitting in it, I think that's
yeah,
the. I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth here, Stuart, but I think that's what the place that you were at. I think is very common, right?
yeah. And the not knowing what to do bit is interesting, okay? Because I probably came to you thinking, look, I was never like a particularly athletic person. I was never particularly sporty, but I did know what it was like and again, I would have framed it in a work sense. I knew what it was like to perform at a higher game professionally when you're in good shape, and when you can run and when you're looking after yourself and you feel good about yourself. And I thought I did think what I was coming to you was guidance on that piece around, right? If you exercise a bit, if you watch what you put in your mouth, I would regain some of that work presence, and actually lots of things would fall into place, and family piece would be great as well. What I didn't realize, I didn't appreciate from your content. And to be fair, I read what you sent through, and I listened to a lot of the podcasts actually, in kind of before I actually reached out. I didn't probably appreciate what you might call, or I'm going to call, the mindset pillar of the program. And yeah, I probably just thought, right, I'm gonna exercise. He's gonna give me some sort of hack that's gonna make me fit in exercise. Where I've not been able to do it before. Guess what? There's not a hack. Um, but I didn't appreciate that they would the importance of that mindset pillar, because you know what to do. Well, you could just get up early and you could just do some exercise, like at a factual level. But actually, the mindset piece might be the thing that's unlocking why you weren't doing it before. Like okay. If I look back now on what I'm doing differently, could I have worked that out myself? Possibly, but I didn't. And maybe the mindset piece is that. And I feel that I came into it, I probably approached it with a degree of arrogance. It's maybe not quite the word, okay? But I probably came into it thinking, right, this guy's going to tell me about exercise and diet, and I don't know about these things. I'm here to learn, right? I probably came in with a little level of arrogance on the mindset stuff. Probably thought, you know what, like I'm super emotionally intelligent. I get all this. I'm in charge of how I feel. But that's been the bigger learning piece. And there's one of the tasks. I don't want to give away your intellectual property here, Luke,
No, it's
but
fine.
there's one of the tasks about there's different facets to the mindset pillar. Okay, disciplined around your phone, for example. I wasn't arrogant about that. Like I recognized I hated my phone, and there's tools that have made me just get away from it. Okay, but there was one of the exercises was around values basically, and do your behaviors and do this where you kind of apply your energy actually line up with where you say your values are. And I put that off, and I probably said it was because I was too busy, but actually I was procrastinating on it because I didn't necessarily want to do it. And I like so many of those things, it's like eat your frogs.
Yeah,
Like there's value in the thing you don't want to do, you know
100%.
and eventually when I got to it, it was well, I mean, we don't have time. We could have to do a whole separate podcast
For
to
sure.
to unpack that exercise. But when I got to it, it was a real mirror on some of my habits and priorities, and just kind of some of the things that have held me back. And just that piece about, like, you gauge it on professional standards, and you have standards in your professional life, and actually, do you apply them to the things that, on the face of it, you would say are more important? And
Mhm.
actually, objectively, they are more important. Your family, your children, your relationship with your wife. Do you apply those same the same standards you do in your professional life to those other things, which are objectively more important. That was a surprisingly concise way of summarising what that exercise
Oh, you
shows me, because
summarised
there's
it really, really
still a
well.
load to unpack.
But I think what you're saying there, though, is really important, because those kind of pieces where there's what you call, in inverted commas, practical mindset stuff, like behavioral things to help facilitate what we're looking at. So putting your phone down, setting boundaries around that, looking around your relationship with alcohol, how you structure your day in your morning, like, and then looking at why things aren't happening and getting to the root of things and thinking about, well, rather than me just metaphorically throwing my towel in and saying, I can't do this, we go, well, why can't you do it? And what's actually going on, and helping understand that. And that, I think, fosters that kind of more open, I would say, stoic, what can you do mindset. So there's that bit, which is more practical. But then there's other bits that are like, well, where am I at, and what's my part in life, and what am I really doing? And something like the values piece that you just described there, I think we've discussed this. Why you procrastinated on it was because you sort of know what it's going to show you, and you don't like that it's going to show you
Yeah.
that. But that's the power of this kind of stuff. Eat the frog, do the hard thing. The obstacle is the way. All the throw in cliched phrase about, stoic phrase about whatever it is. But like on the other side of that, when you see it in black and white, it takes it from being subjective or subconscious in the back of your mind to front and center. You go, right then, well, what are we going to do about it? And of course, the process we've been through is a part about addressing that. But some of it's just about how you think. And so once you've done that, in the moment when you're about to do something or whatever else, you can go, hold up, I've just thought about this. Is this aligning with where I want to be? And I think when we don't do that and life just smashes us around, it can be quite difficult. Whereas actually, if we've done a little bit of work like that, it helps you be a bit more conscious and intentional around what you do. And of course, we can't spend our entire life doing personal development and just contemplating our navel.
No.
But a little bit of that done in the right way, I think, is incredibly powerful, because it also leverages and powers up some of the more practical behavioral stuff that we do. And it's not to say that doing some movement and looking at what you put in your mouth doesn't have an impact. It has a profound impact in how you look, how you feel, how you operate, but it's a small piece of a bigger picture. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed, but it's definitely not the only thing. And often why it isn't happening is all the other stuff as well. So it's putting all those pieces together, right?
Yeah, completely. It's not three pillars; it's holistic, actually. And if you just try and push, if you just tried to push the exercise pillar, I suspect you would just be adding to the burnout risk. I'm slightly conscious of using the word burnout, but you would just be trying to add something else onto the list, and that was exactly what I wasn't able to do when I first came and spoke to you. I was like, yeah, I probably know that if I run, if I do some press ups, if I lift some weights, I'm going to, there's going to be an effect. But I wasn't doing it, and I think it's the power of the program that you've got, is that it takes it holistically, and it also layers it up. Another part of the appeal of reaching out to you was that it seemed like to me, looking at your socials, that you got the fact that, look, life's busy. I was already busy as a professional. I'm extremely busy as a professional dad, and that you got that, and the holistic nature of it, focusing on the mindset piece, and probably layering on small habits that actually, once you're like 6 weeks in, you're like, actually, I've built that into something quite meaningful. Whereas in week one, you'd be like, is that it? But a few weeks later, you're like, yeah, actually, there's some momentum here now, and I wouldn't say I've not noticed it, but yeah, slipped in a little bit.
Yeah, well, and so there's a couple of points there. One of them is that recognizing that everyone's busy and hectic. That's totally true, right? And so what I do, if the way that I work to help support my clients and get you where you want to be added more stress and made it more difficult, it's not going to be fit for purpose. And so there's a gent who's just started. He's at week 1 now, and I did a little video about this last week, and he's like, similar job to you, Stuart, full on, flat out. Next 4 weeks, there's some huge transaction going on. He's like, maybe I should wait till after. I was like, absolutely not. I was like, no. And he's like, well, and he said, I thought that was going to be the answer. And for everything you've just said, because like what we do here will make that next 4 weeks better. Will we have to compromise some stuff? Will it be perfect? No. But what we can do is show you there's a way for you to operate, which isn't working right now, which will mean at the end of that 4 weeks, you go, thank God I started, because I've done some stuff. And that's it. And so it's not ram loads of stuff in and hope for the best, because that's the old way of operating, and that wouldn't work. We need to start slow and steady and build from there, and show you that actually, even when things are hectic, you can make the change. And in fact, more so, I think it's better when it's more hectic, because that's normal. That's life, right?
Yeah. And it's like, waiting for it to happen. Again, in a professional sense, if I was speaking to someone at work and they were waiting for a quiet time to do something, I'd be like, guess what, mate? That time's not coming. Like, if this is
Mhm.
important, just do it.
Exactly.
When's the best time to plant a tree? And actually, for all that, for all the as I said, Theo was 2-ish when I first reached out. For all that time, I was kind of telling myself, well, this time will come when I can get my fitness back. And another part of the decision to reach out was actually, now Theo's brother's coming along. I was like, actually, that time could be at least 2 or 3 years away, and that's going to be quite a long
Exactly.
time to have not done anything for myself. And I was like, no, actually, the time is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just come back to procrastinating. Why did I not want to do the values exercise? The flip of it is that's where the value lies. Like, the thing
Yeah.
that you're putting off is the thing that you should be doing. Uh, I kind of see. I'm not presenting myself as a finished article either, but I kind of see that now. That,
Yeah.
yeah, the time was absolutely now.
Well, if you don't do anything, you'll stay exactly where you are. And so
Yeah,
doing something will be better than not. I also understand.
or you'll decline. And a lot
Yeah.
of guys at my stage, I said I'm 39.9, will be on a slow decline. And if
Yeah.
it's unchecked, it's going to be harder to fix.
And I also understand totally why someone might say that. I'll get the odd message on LinkedIn and go, "Oh yeah, look, son yourself away." I'd love to have a chat, but right now is not the time because insert, busy work, busy family, house renovation, or whatever. And I was like, I get that, but like you're looking at it the completely wrong way around. It's like this is what you need to address. Like when in what world does stuff just suddenly just get calm? I
Yeah,
don't know. Like I mean,
yeah,
speaking of myself, like something you said there about getting it as well. I think it's also important to recognise I'm 41. I've got 3 kids. I'm married. I run a business. Like right now, as you sit, I'm sat in a 2-bed flat, which 5 is living in because we're renovating our house. Now, I'm not saying that aren't I perfect. I'm saying that I get it as well. But it's also important for me to take care of myself to help support all of this, right? And uh, anyone that sits there and says, we've all got the same 24 hours in a day. It's not true. It's bollocks, right? Yes, we've all got 24
absolutely.
hours, but a lot of us have got different 24 hours. A 22-year-old has got a very, with maybe a missus or not, and a job has got a very different set of 24 hours than me or you, right? And that's
Yeah,
okay. But it's also being able to recognize that. And just because you've got lots going on doesn't mean you can't make stuff different or change or actually be better within the maelstrom and madness of what's going on, right? Um,
yeah.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, Stuart, because already we've had a good old chat, and I could
Yeah,
just keep talking.
you're going to have to stop me because I'll
Yeah, I know, no, it's
otherwise we'll end
great.
up lining up a sequel.
Well, no, I'm happy to do that, and I think me and you can chat as well. So, I guess a couple of questions I want to ask. The first one would be: having come through this process now, like you said, 14 weeks in, what would you say has been your key takeaway? And then we've touched on this a little bit, but from coming through this as you sit today.
I guess we've touched on it throughout here that the mindset piece is probably just that. I don't want to say it's a secret sauce, but you know, if you said to me, right, get up at 5 a.m., do some exercise, cut your calories, I'd be like, well, it's not rocket science, is it? But actually, the, but I wasn't doing it regardless, even though it's not rocket science. There was still something preventing me from doing it. The the mindset piece is just is kind of that secret sauce. Don't neglect that bit to it. It's perhaps not as simple as I thought it was at the start. That is a key reflection, I think, as I've prepared for this chat and I was thinking about what I wanted to say. I didn't think of this as I went through, but I know that other guys in the program do, is that the small habits will layer up. I can imagine that there was blokes, and obviously we get a chance. There's a weekly coaching call, a group coaching call, and there's guys at lots of different levels, and there's probably guys that see some of the early exercise goals and think, what's the point of this? Actually, the ability to build it up. Well, obviously it compounds. Okay, like small habits compound, but they also stick. In a way that just telling me to exercise for an hour every morning would never have stuck. It would never have
Mhm.
worked. They stick. Well, that's the nature of a habit, isn't it? If you don't do it, you're like, I need to do it. Like I feel it's like brushing your teeth. Like you're not going to miss brushing your teeth, or you're going to be very conscious of it if you don't. If you layer it up like that, they become habits. I think that it helps you roll it back. And, in 8 weeks, I'm going to plan, I'll have some paternity leave, and, the plan is going to get a massive punch in the face. I'll probably need to roll the habits back a bit,
Mhm.
but not to zero, you
That's the
know?
point.
I think the layering of it up helps you do that, and helps you just right size. It sounds a bit trite, but like make it work for you. Because yeah, there's going to be days that your baby's going to be up for 24 hours. There's going to be days where your toddler's up for 24 hours, and okay, just need to roll it back. Like I can't do everything I was planning to do today. I need to roll it back, and then but I roll it back to a point where there's still something for me. Is not quite the right way to say it, but there's still something there. Um, I think that's probably my reflections on the
Yeah.
on the program.
Well, I mean, of course, I would agree because it's what I do, right? But it's totally true because um, the small layering effect has two parts. It means you can totally do it. So it's like, well, we asked you to do something very, very basic. What's that about? Well, we'll try doing it, see what happens. And then, or you do it, I feel quite good. And it allows you to build things. But also, it shows you that, okay, once you've built a bigger, shiny, more exciting stuff and you've got lots of stuff going on and you can make it fit, life punches you in the face with something really positive and lovely like a new baby, or work goes ballistic or whatever else, you go, whoa, I know how to flex and flow relative to what's going on. And if I have to back some of those off, it's not I am failing and not doing good enough because that other, there's a version that,
Yeah,
doing more of it is better. It's relative to what life is presenting you with. And so sometimes you have to batten down the hatches and know high performance, me being my best, is doing those three things once, and that's good enough on a day like today because X, Y, Z. And to be able to have the resilience to flex and flow between those states, and it's not one's better or worse, it's just relative to what's happening. I think where a lot of people start or try to operate is there's 50 things I must do for me to be good. And if
yeah,
they don't all happen, I've failed and it's rubbish. And so it's either zero or that. And that's where you get these huge oscillations and pendulum swings and you can't get consistency. It's like, no, we have to be realistic with what happens in life and be able to flex and flow with it. And I think that's exactly what you're describing. I think ultimately what that is resilience, right? And so it's like I can adapt myself relative to what life is presenting me with. And then you can feel like, well, I've had a really hectic week, but I did my best there, and I did that, and that was good enough relative to what's happened. And I think that's a much more positive and realistic place to operate from.
yeah. And that expectation piece, right? Because you as a young father, right? So you might be like, no, I never really went to the gym beforehand, okay, and I don't go now actually, as it happens. But let's say running, I'd be like, well, I'm not going to go out for a run unless I'm going to go for an hour, right? But that expectation was set, like in my early 30s, and guess what? Life's different. Life's changed, so yeah, before I'd have been like, well, I'm not going unless it's at this level. But you just move that level, and something is better than nothing, And I was doing nothing for an awful long time.
And with high performers like yourself and other guys that I work with that are like hard charging at work, it's this like perfectionist has to be amazing mindset, and it's quite hard to let go of and go, well, no, like doing a little bit of something is better than fuck all, and
Yeah,
then there's so then you've kept a commitment, so you remain disciplined. You've done something for yourself. That little bit of something will have an effect, and so it's like this trifecta of okay, well done me. Whereas if you didn't do it, oh, I was lazy there. Well, actually, no.
yeah,
Doing a little bit of something doesn't, it is always better than zero, in my opinion. Um,
yeah.
but it's been an absolute pleasure. And like I said, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let's say someone's sitting listening to this and perhaps they're in a sort of headspace that you were, 40 odd weeks back, feeling as you were feeling, maybe on the fence in terms of engaging with someone like me, whether it's me or not, doesn't really matter. What would you say to someone in that position, now knowing what you know now?
I think if when I said at the start, like I tried to articulate how I felt, but I obviously did it with everything I picked up over the course of the last 14 weeks or whatever, and I'm absolutely not a finished article. We're really just getting started. There's no shortcuts in this. If you think something's wrong, if there's that nagging self doubt that you can't quite articulate, if you think something's wrong, something needs fixed, it probably does. Um, and and what have you got to lose? And then I guess once we started speaking, and I was at the point where I, you know, needed to get my wallet out to be to be direct about it. I was thinking to myself, and you're a good salesman, and I'm a salesman's dream. But I was thinking to myself, look, if this works, yeah, like if I get just a bit of what I think the upside is, this will be worth it. And without trying to be cheesy about it, you can't really put a price on some of that stuff, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, Providing that you can afford it, of course. You just can't really put a price on that. So, yeah, if you think something's wrong, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Give it a shot, you know.
Well, mate, I would completely agree, Stuart. But again, I've got skin in the
Okay.
game, so of course I say that. But there's a phrase from recovery actually, which is like, if you think you got a problem, you got a problem. Right?
Yeah. Well, again, I got that word from you. I got that sentence from you, undoubtedly. So, yeah, credit to
It's
you.
true, and I think the recognise is okay. I have, and then so if you are in the place that Stuart was describing, or you're feeling like that with whatever's going on, just be honest with yourself. And go, okay, something needs to change. Now, of course, I'm a coach. I can help, and if you're interested, drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM, and I can totally help with that. But parking that, like, don't stay stuck. Recognize something needs to happen. Have a look at yourself and think about, well, what can I do? And it doesn't need to be big shiny stuff. And so, if you're in a place where things aren't working, you feel you've got a problem, and you're doing stuff and it's resulting in the same results, just think, well, what do I need to do that's different? Like, what's not working and what is different, and start from there. And that's, of course, how we work in the process and the program. There's a whole syllabus and the way our coach is built around that. But you can do it yourself. But I think the very first step is just being honest and stop lying and saying things are all great if they're not. It's that I'm not depressed, but if you're saying anything like that and there's a but after it, I think there's a good indication that something needs to change, right? Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time, mate. I've really enjoyed chatting. We'll definitely get you on for round two because we could have gone for another hour and it's been great. So I really appreciate it.
Got some notes for the sequel here. So, thank you for having me.
Awesome. As I said, if anyone is interested in having a chat with me about how I can help doing the sort of stuff that me and Stuart have talked about, drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM. Otherwise, have a fantastic week. Stuart, thank you. You're a legend. And I'll see you all next week. Cheers, guys.